Hi, I'm Carol Watson, and I am the Chief Thriver at ThriveB.com. Thank you, and welcome to another Thrive Talk. We're excited today to have as our guest Lauren Brandt. She's the Director of Programmatic Engagement for Havas Media. And we asked her to come because just this year alone, in 2014, there has been such excitement, fear, anxiety around the word programmatic in the advertising and media and digital circles, and we really wanted to address that, and we were so excited to find an amazing leader in the space that can talk to us about it. So for those of you that are new to Thrive Talk, we're only on our third one this year, but Thrive Talk is a 20-minute intimate chat with someone that you've always wanted to hear about, some information you've always wanted to know about. And we want to give you access to them by allowing you to ask questions as we're going through the talk, and as many questions as we can get in, we'll have Lauren answer. But we want to make you smarter about the trends that are going on in the industry. So thanks to our friends at Microsoft that have made this possible. If there's somebody that you'd really like to have as a Thrive Talk guest, please shoot us a note. Let us know what you think. So to start us off and kick us off on this Thrive Talk, I want to welcome Lauren to this experience and have her start off by sharing with us a little bit more about her role.
Sure. Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for inviting me. As you mentioned, I am the Programmatic Engagement Director for Havas Media. Essentially, that means that I serve as a liaison between the Havas trading desk, which is called AfriPerk, and the Havas Media teams, really helping them to understand programmatic, what it means for their clients, and how to really include programmatic in their strategy and make it all make sense.
That's awesome. So programmatic is still a very new field. I'm sure you didn't think that you want to be a programmatic director when you were in college. Can you give us a brief background on how you got to where you are now?
Sure. To be honest with you, it was kind of random, as I feel like a lot of advertising positions are. I graduated from Florida A&M University with my bachelor's and master's, or specifically my MBA. I went into a rotation program with the Nielsen Company, the TV ratings people, for a year and a half, where I worked for 4 different business units in 4 different cities. So it was an amazing experience. I got to learn a lot about media and specifically about research. After the program, I went into a role in our global communications department, where I served as a communications manager. And then, surprisingly enough, I transitioned into sales, specifically local television sales, so your local TV stations and advertising agencies in your cities. After going into sales, I realized there were a lot of really great aspects of sales that I loved, and there were things I really, really didn't. And thankfully enough, I was provided an opportunity through Publicis, through one of their companies called VivaKey. They are really the research and development hub for all of the Publicis group. And it was a role that literally in the job description it said that I was an evangelist on behalf of this audience on demand brand, which was their trading desk. And so thankfully the position allowed me to transition a lot of the great things that I learned in sales and all of the good things that I liked about sales without any of the pressure of sales. So my job was really to educate, to make sure that our Publicis sister agencies really understood what we did, but also specifically to make sure that these teams were educated on programmatic and, again, how to include it really in your strategy. So I went from really being really involved in television, not knowing anything. I didn't know what an impression was. I didn't know what a DSP was. That was my first question in my very first meeting at VivaKey. What is a DSP? I went from really knowing nothing about the industry into having to educate people on the industry. I think my television background served as a great foray into that, just from the simple fact that you have a lot of kind of old guard clients that aren't used to investing the same amount of dollars in digital as they were investing in television. And so I think I was able to kind of help them make that transition. And then I came into this role at Havas, where they had a very similar need. Their trading desk is a little newer than VivaKey's trading desk, and so I think that their client challenges are a little different. So I'm still learning, still growing in this space.
Wonderful. So for those of us that are still babies in the language in the world of programmatic, can you kind of break it down to us like we're fifth graders? What do you tell client marketers that are still new in the space? How do you explain it in a way that gives us a little taste of what programmatic is and why there's so much excitement and nervousness in the industry about programmatic this year?
So programmatic buying is simply the means in which you buy. That's all. It doesn't mean it's real-time bidded or RTB. It doesn't mean that everyone in direct sales is losing their jobs. It means that there's just a different and automated way of buying digital media specifically right now. But as you know, the industry is growing and we'll be buying television programmatically at some point and radio programmatically at some point. But it literally is just the means in which you buy. Whenever I kind of have the conversation with people who aren't aware of digital, I always compare it to kind of what we think of as television advertising and then transition that into digital advertising. There are only going to be 20 minutes worth of commercial space in Scandal. They're not adding any more commercial space into Scandal. So within that 20 minutes, there's a limited amount of commercials that can actually air during that time, right? So when you look at the digital space, there are obviously nuances to this, but literally an infinite amount of inventory available, right? And that inventory really depends on your browsing history, depends on the type of person you are, it depends on if you're in the market for something or not, and we know all of that by how you search the internet. So when thinking about programmatic media and thinking about, kind of transitioning into digital, when we say that there's an infinite amount of inventory, there's a vast majority of it that does not get bought up. Maybe I shouldn't say majority. There's a large percentage of it that does not get bought through direct sales. So, and that the inventory that's not bought through direct sales sometimes gets sold, sometimes it gets unsold. But the process of getting that inventory usually is through a bidded marketplace. So within that bidded marketplace, I'm able to say, hi, I'm an African American female. I'm between the ages of 25 and 34. I like to online shop for shoes. Zappos should probably send me an ad. And all of that happens within 50 milliseconds. So RTB, or real-time bidded inventory, essentially, is a part of programmatic, but it's not all that's programmatic. You can do direct buying programmatically as well. And so I think there's this fear of programmatic in the marketplace that it's just kind of remnant, really sketchy inventory, and that's just not true.
Awesome, thank you. So I've been reading it's a means of execution, yet 80% of the marketing client budgets for display are going to it, and 83% of all the display advertising is done through programmatic. So how has it changed the work experience and what people are doing and paying attention to?
So I think the 83% number is probably coming a little further in the future, maybe 2016 or 2017. But right now, there is a lot of inventory that is bought programmatically. I think that it's changing the way people think about media buying. I think that previously we didn't really have to be efficient because everyone was buying things in the same manner. When you transition into programmatic, almost the entire purpose of programmatic is to be really efficient in your buy. So there's no waste that's happening, right? So I think that it's had agencies specifically and probably advertisers as well reevaluate where they're spending their money, how they're spending their money, what data can they gather about the consumers that they have in order to make really, really good decisions about not only who they target, but how they target them.
Awesome, thank you. So there are probably people in the Thrive community that are either currently superstar ad salespeople working for one of the different media platforms, or someone that's interested in ad sales. So how has that really changed the role of the ad seller nowadays in your view as the buyer? What do you look for differently, and what are you seeing in the marketplace?
We get a lot of direct sales people that come to our agencies, obviously. There are also a lot of publishers that I've noticed that have really started to build a programmatic team. I think that works in some cases, and in some cases it doesn't. In my personal opinion, I think everyone should be well-versed in programmatic because it is the way the industry is going. And from a ad seller perspective, if I was an ad seller, I would want to know as much as I can about programmatic. The value of having someone in ad sales, going to a client or going to an agency to really pitch, not going to change. Again, as programmatic is only a means of buying, at the end of the day, we still need someone to actually tell us what we should be buying, right? So you still need to prove the value to me of your inventory, the value of the website that you have, who is your target, things of that nature. That part of the business doesn't go away. What may go away is me handwriting or faxing a paper IO in order to buy media from you. But again, we still need someone out there to really prove that value. So there's definitely still room for ad sales.
So people will still be doing dinners and lunches and feeding the industry community?
I'm sure they will be still doing dinners and lunches. There are several sites that are sending a lot of inventory programmatically. I actually went to a really interesting unveiling of the first top 25 publisher to actually be 100% programmatic. It's ehow.com, and they're owned by Demand Media. And in this meeting, we were really talking about how programmatic has just essentially changed the way that they're sending this inventory to their clients. It doesn't mean that they still don't need a sales staff, and it still doesn't mean that they're only sending their remnant inventory there. They're sending homepage takeovers. They're sending rising star ad units. They're sending really big and usually really expensive direct buy types of things programmatically.
Awesome. So since we're a community serving diverse industry professionals, many people work within the multicultural space. They represent media that is targeting African American, Hispanic, or Asian consumers. What are you seeing programmatic fitting into, or that multicultural fitting into programmatic, if at all? And what trends do you anticipate moving forward when it comes to multicultural marketing?
Yeah, to be honest, it's really, really interesting. And coming from television, where ethnicity and nationality had a very big impact on how media was bought. In the digital space, we kind of don't care if you're black, yellow, or green. We just want you to buy our products. So, although there may be, targets and sites that cater more to certain minorities, at the end of the day, we care that you purchase what we want to sell you. And so I think that in the digital space in general, not just in programmatic, there may be less of a need for the multicultural differentiation specifically, unless it is around language, right? So unless you are targeting a specific language or sites that hold a specific language. So I think that multicultural definitely still has its place in traditional media. I think that it has less of an effect probably in media buying from a digital perspective. Now, one thing that does not mean is that, as an African American woman, I still like to see ads with African Americans in them. So from a creative perspective, we definitely still have a very, very, very big need for multicultural agencies. Even in strategy and in idea generation and concepts, it's important to have a really diverse team in the background doing this work so that everyone's putting forth their best ideas and ideas that will appeal to more than just one group. So I think media buying specifically, maybe there's not as much of a need for the multicultural differentiation, but definitely still in strategy and in creative.
Fabulous. So for the entrepreneurs in the community, any ideas on businesses that are still needed or services that people should be thinking about launching?
To be honest with you, I see the marketplace shrinking a little bit. If you're in the digital space, then you've probably seen one of those awful loomscapes with like 1 million companies. Any company with 2 nickels to rub together, probably in the past 3 to 5 years, has created some kind of digital media company, right? So I see a lot of these companies getting bought up, to be honest with you, and becoming larger companies. From an entrepreneurial perspective, I think I see a need, in addition to what agencies are already doing, in consulting firms that are really able to bridge that gap between television and digital. How to really repurpose these dollars into buying more digital. And I think that sometimes, although that is the agency's role, it's always great to hear it from another source. And so I see that as more of a need than anything in the marketplace.
Fabulous. So you're a successful leader, director at a major agency. Can you give us some sense of what you have used, what's worked for you as a leader to get to where you are? What resources, what has it taken for you to thrive in the industry?
Um, I think, to be honest with you, I had very early in my career a lot of people that really cared about my development and about my success. I have a number of really awesome mentors, and they are the kinds of mentors that pulled me aside and told me when I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. They're the kind of mentors that encouraged me. They were the kind of mentors that brought me new opportunities, and gave me, a new way of thinking. And I think that I personally think it's really important to have very organic mentor relationships. Some of these people didn't even know they were my mentors for a long time. I would just call on them for advice. And I think that it's important to first know that you don't know everything. My father always told me that it's more important to know what you don't know, actually, and to not kind of put on airs about that. And so I have always been the type of person that was very open with what I didn't know and what I still needed to learn. And I think that that's really helped me be successful because I'm not kind of faking the funk, as you would say. So I have the mentors that I have in my life, definitely being really, really, really open to learning and understanding what I'm doing. And if there are any loopholes in that knowledge, to be kind of okay with that, to be okay with not knowing everything and okay with learning. I would also say probably lastly, collaboration. The ability to really work with a lot of different groups in order to kind of come together for a common goal. Because you're not going to ever know everything, it's important to know who to call on when you don't. And so the kind of collaboration that happens when you have several different groups in a room with different perspectives, I think it's amazing. And I think naturally I'm a problem solver, and I lead towards that.
That's great. Can you share, and I'm hearing that you've had a lot of mentors, can you share any examples of things that mentors have inspired and kind of pulled out from you, either to turn down in your style and your personality and your way, or to turn up, conversely?
I remember when I first started in digital, I probably have a couple stories about this, but when I first started in digital, I think I was so afraid of being around so many people that knew so much and I knew so little. And so after being literally several years into my job, I was kind of still saying that I didn't know a lot. And I had someone pull me aside and say, you actually know more than you think you know. You don't actually have to say that anymore, and that you should be really confident in the things that you do know. And again, the things that you don't, you can find out. So that's probably one example. I felt the need to be kind of more timid in what I was saying, and that I wasn't confident in my knowledge, and it was really important for me to be confident in that role. I also had a mentor, probably in one of my first positions, a mentor that I still keep in contact with on a very regular basis, pull me aside and tell me that I was not good at what I was doing, and I should be looking for another opportunity. And at the time, I actually worked for him, so that was really hard to hear. But I think at the end of the day, it was okay. You're not going to be good at every single thing that you do. But I think it's important to find that groove. And as it turns out, it led me to an even better role, that led me to the next role, that led me to this role. So I think that, having someone to say, look, I've been observing your work. I don't think this is what you should be doing. You should be doing something else. I think it's awesome. And I thank God for him and that advice that he gave me.
That's an amazing sharing. I really appreciate it. I think that'll really will touch a lot of people in the community, either today or moving forward. So I'm hoping everyone hears that. In the last minute or two, we want to make sure we have some takeaways for people as they leave. So can you give us some thoughts on where people should go if they want to know more about programmatic, or any resources that you've used or you take advantage of that allow you to thrive?
So I am big on industry newsletters. I get a ton of them in my inbox every morning. It helps me to stay abreast of what's happening in the industry with even competing agencies, but it also just keeps me on my toes with clients. Knows they read trades too. And so oftentimes they'll send questions and want perspectives on certain topics, and it's important that you really stay abreast of on what's happening in the industry. Every morning I read the IAB newsletter, I read the 4A's newsletter, and I read adexchanger.com. There are a lot of newsletters, obviously, Digiday, Media Post, kind of all of those are usually the articles, important articles from those are combined within those 3 newsletters. I would say those really help me stay abreast on industry trends, if the company has been bought or sold, if there are things happening in the industry that I need to stay abreast of, and sometimes form a POV on, because that is also a part of my role. So I would say definitely those top 3 newsletters. You can kind of curtail them as you see fit. But I think that specifically those 3, IAB, the 4A's, and adexchanger.com will really kind of help you jump into digital media.
That's great. Well, thank you so much. This has been a great Thrive Talk. You've really given us some great insight to chew on, as well as some fabulous uncovering and vulnerability. We really appreciate you sharing your journey, and we expect to see and hear amazing things from you moving forward. So thank you, Lauren Brandt, for your time and your efforts, and we look forward to seeing more of the community next week when we talk about creative career transitions. So stay tuned, and thank you all for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye-bye.